The power forward is a very important position in basketball, but out of all 5 positions, it's the one that people give the least amount of respect to. So today, we're going to give the power forwards their flowers, and I'm going to give my list for the top 10 greatest power forwards of all time. Number 10 is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been an all-star caliber player for a while now, and after his championship run with LeBron James and the Lakers during the bubble, I believe he's officially in the top 10. Just skill and talent wise, AD could very well be top 5 in this list, but he's been through a lot of setbacks in his career that definitely set back his ranking all time. For one, he's one of the most injury-prone players ever, he's constantly getting hurt, and he's not a player who can be consistently great. He's still playing today, and this season he's been playing amazing, so if he can get another championship to his name, or even just a few more great seasons, he could retire a lot higher on this list, but as of right now, I think he's number 10. Number 9 is Dennis Rodman. A very polarizing player in NBA history, and somebody fans either loved or hated. But besides all the crazy off-the-court stuff he would do, Dennis Rodman is an all-time great power forward. He won 5 championships in his career, 2 with the Bad Boy Pistons and 3 with the Chicago Bulls and their second three-peat, and he is regarded as one of the greatest rebounders and defenders ever. He was never that great of a scorer by any means, and he was never the best player on any of his championship teams, but he was a very important piece to every single one. Dennis Rodman was the player that did all the dirty work. He did the things that other players didn't wanna, diving for loose balls, crashing on every board, getting hit a few times. Dennis Rodman was that guy, and one of the best to ever do it. At number 8, I've got Bob Pettitt. One of the more underrated players in NBA history just because he played during the 1950s, but Bob Pettitt had a very successful career. He was a 2-time MVP, an 11-time All-Star, and he won 1 championship in 1958. But over everything, Bob Pettitt was a scorer in every sense of the word. He was consistently averaging 26 to 27 points, and he was pretty unstoppable in his prime. His accolades and legacy is unquestionable, but the competition that he went up against does play a factor in his rankings, so I got him at number 8. Number 7 is Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale and Larry Bird were an amazing duo in the 80s, and as great as Larry Bird was, I don't think he would have won everything that he won without Kevin McHale on his team. He played with the Celtics for 13 years and won 3 championships throughout the 80s. He was a 7-time All-Star, a 2-time 6th Man of the Year, he made 6 All-Defensive teams, and overall he was a great scorer. He could also rebound the ball very well, and like I mentioned, his defense was one of the best in the league for many years. He is easily a top 10 power forward ever, and the craziest part being that he came off the bench for a majority of his career. At number 6 is Charles Barkley. Charles never really gets brought up in all-time discussions today, simply because he was never able to win the championship, but he had a career full of achievements and success that a lot of all-time greats don't. He played the beginning of his career with the 76ers and then joined the Phoenix Suns, which is where he spent most of his prime. He was an MVP, an 11-time All-Star, and he's a Hall of Famer. He was mostly known for his rebounding, but he was also a great scorer and an all-time great defender. Nowadays, he's known for being on Inside the NBA with Shaq and all the funny moments he has on there, but he had an amazing career, and if he would have been able to get through Jordan and the Bulls and actually win a championship, people would probably put a lot more respect on his name. Number 5, I've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. One of the very few current players to make this list, Giannis has played small forward before, but majority of the past few years, he's been at power forward and even sometimes at center. And I know it's weird ranking current players alongside older players because there's a big chance that Giannis can win many more championships and MVPs, especially with Dame being on the team now, but I believe if Giannis retired today, he would rank as a top 5 power forward ever. He brought the Milwaukee Bucks their first championship since the 1970s just a few seasons ago, and he's won 2 league MVPs. And the year he hasn't won the MVP, he's at least been in the top 3 or close in contention every single season. Talent-wise, he's amazing when attacking the basket and scoring in the post, and he's also proved to be a great all-time defender, with a DPOY to prove it. You could already make the argument that Giannis is a top 3 power forward, but since he hasn't been doing it as long as some other people, I've got him at number 5. Number 4 is Kevin Garnett. KG is a guy that truly built a pathway to players like Giannis today, and there wasn't many players like him before he entered the league. He had a very successful career with the Timberwolves and the Celtics. He won an MVP in 2004, a Defensive Player of the Year in 2008, and a championship in 2008 as well. He was one of the most fierce, intimidating players ever, and he would be a lot higher on this list, but his track record in the playoffs is not the greatest. I get he didn't have that much help in the Timberwolves, but he did have some solid players, and honestly more help than a lot of other all-time greats did to begin their careers. But his influence as a player and the numbers he was putting up consistently ranks him this high. Number 3 is Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk played in one of the longest NBA careers ever and spent all 21 seasons with the Dallas Mavericks. He was consistently a top 5 to top 3 player in the league throughout his career, but his biggest achievement is his championship run in 2011, when he led the Mavericks to a win over the LeBron and D-Wade super team they had just built in Miami, and it's still one of the biggest upsets ever. He also won an MVP in 2007, and he was a 12-time All-NBA member. He revolutionized the power forward position with a shooting ability and unique play style, and a lot of three-point shooting big men today get compared to Dirk. He was undoubtedly the greatest European player ever, and he was the best player in basketball a few times in his career, which is something a lot of other players on this list can't say. Number 2 is Karl Malone. Karl Malone was a pretty great basketball player, and if you want to hear about the career and legacy of Karl Malone, go on to Google and look up Karl Malone 13. And finally, at number 1, Tim Duncan. This one is no debate. Tim Duncan nearly had a perfect career that may not be replicated for years to come. He was a 2-time MVP, a 5-time champion, and a 3-time finals MVP. He also had 15 All-Star selections, 15 All-NBA selections, and 15 All-Defense selections. He was truly dominant at his position for over a decade, and while being matched up against players like Kevin Garnett and Dirk Nowitzki in their primes. But Tim Duncan still gets underrated simply because of the way he played. As great as he was, Tim Duncan was a very boring player. He wasn't a 3-point shooting, fadeaway jump shooter like Dirk, and he didn't have the trash talk and play as fierce as somebody like a Kevin Garnett. He was a very fundamental, basic player, but he did it so much better than everybody else did. But with that being said, that's my top 10 list for the greatest power forwards of all time. Let me know what you guys would do differently in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and with that being said, I'm out of here, and I'll see you on the next one.